The text came through on a Tuesday afternoon, a single silent vibration that would detonate my life. I was in the middle of color-coding my fertility medication schedule, a rainbow of desperation and hope on the kitchen counter. The phone buzzed, an unknown number with a +33 country code. France. My first foolish thought was that it was the clinic, calling with some miraculous overseas second opinion. The image loaded with agonizing slowness, a Polaroid developing from the digital abyss. First, a blur of wrought iron, then a man's arm in a navy blue sweater I knew intimately. I'd knitted it for him. Then, a woman's auburn hair. And finally, the full, gut-wrenching clarity. It was Leo and Clara. They were on a balcony, drenched in golden hour light, the Eiffel Tower a filigreed cliché in the distance. His arm was cinched around her waist, possessive. Her head was tilted back, laughing at something he'd said, her neck exposed in a way that was both vulnerable and intimate. They were holding flutes of champagne. They looked, in a word, married. The caption, sent by a stranger named Isabel, read, "Saw your profile on Couples Who Travel? You two look so madly in love. Wanted to send you this beautiful candid shot I took. Isabel." My profile, our shared Instagram, a hollow shell I never touched, that Leo managed with the diligence of a social media strategist. He had posted a photo of us from a winery tour last year, my face smiling obliviously at the camera with the caption, "Surprising my beautiful wife Mia with a long weekend in the City of Light. She has no idea. Hashtag Paris, hashtag surprise getaway, hashtag couples goals." He'd used my face, my name, as a cover for this? The room didn't spin. It crystallized. The hum of the refrigerator morphed into a low, accusatory drone. The tick of the grandmother clock in the hall became a metronome, counting down the last seconds of my old life. The scent of the lemon-scented cleaner I'd used to scrub the counters now smelled like decay. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a meticulously staged production. And I, sitting alone with my ovulation tests and shattered dreams, was holding the opening night photos. To understand the depth of the cut, you have to understand the tapestry he so casually set ablaze. Leo and I didn't just meet in college. We built a universe for two. I was Mia, the pragmatic art history major, my life organized in color-coded binders, my future a detailed 5-year plan. He was Leo, the charming, impulsive business student who could talk a skeptic into buying a bridge and make them feel brilliant for the purchase. We were the couple our friends pointed to. Look at Mia and Leo. They make sense. For 12 years, we built. We bought a tired little bungalow with good bones and spent 3 years bringing it back to life, our arguments over paint swatches ending in laughter and makeup sex. We established rituals, terrible 80s movie Fridays with extra buttered popcorn, Sunday morning coffee in bed with the crosswords, him doing the clues, me filling in the boxes. We dreamed of a family. That dream had recently curdled into a medical odyssey of temperature charts and hormone injections and the sterile, hopeful, sad language of doctors. Unexplained infertility. Let's try another round. It was a shadow over us, but a shadow we were navigating together, or so I thought. And then, woven into the very fabric of our lives, were Ben and Clara. Then, Leo's best friend since they were kids building forts in the woods, solid, reliable Ben, a carpenter with calloused hands and a heart so genuine it almost hurt to look at. And Clara. Clara was a sparkler in human form, vibrant, chaotic, throwing off bright, beautiful light that could also, if you weren't careful, burn you. An aspiring interior designer, she saw the world in textures and palettes. She spoke in exclamation points and dramatic pronouncements. We were a four-legged table. Weekend barbecues where Ben and Leo would argue sports while Clara and I refilled our wine glasses and gossiped. Double dates at the new Italian place downtown. I was the one she called at 2 a.m. when her father passed away suddenly, and I sat on her bathroom floor for hours holding her while she sobbed. She was the one who showed up with 3 gallons of paint and a determined look when we decided to convert the spare room into a nursery. "We're doing this," she'd said, splattering primer on her overalls. "This is going to be the most beautiful room for the most beautiful baby." She wasn't just my friend. She was a supporting character in the story of my life. Leo's marketing startup, Apex Forward, had been his consuming passion for 3 years. It was his 3rd child, after our 2 cats. Lately, the business trips had become more frequent, the stress a constant, low-grade hum in our home. He'd come back distant, his mind 1,000 miles away. He'd snap at me over trivial things, a dish left in the sink, a misplaced set of keys. I'd absorbed it all, blaming the pressure. I became a master of support. I cooked his favorite meals, gave him space, rubbed the tension from his shoulders while he lamented about unreliable investors and draining cash flow. I was building a foundation of unwavering support, brick by patient brick, while he was secretly, expertly, digging a tunnel right beneath it. The Chicago trip had been on the calendar for a month. The Anderson account was the big one, he said, the one that could finally get us out of the red and into the black. The week before he left, he'd been different, unusually attentive. He'd come home with a velvet-lined box from the art supply store. Inside was a set of sable hair brushes, the kind I'd ogled for years but could never justify. He'd said, "I know I've been absent, Mia. I know this fertility journey has been hell, and I haven't been the rock you needed. This trip is the last big push. After Anderson, things will calm down. We can focus on us, on the family thing. I promise." I'd believed him. A surge of pure, unadulterated hope had flooded my chest. I'd thrown my arms around him, burying my face in his neck, thinking, this is it. We're turning a corner. Now, I see the scene for what it was. Not a promise, but a payoff. A $200 bribe to soothe his conscience while he packed his bags for a honeymoon with another woman. The Paris photo was the bomb blast, but the shrapnel had been shredding me for months. I just hadn't felt the cuts until now. I sat at the kitchen table for an hour, maybe 2, just staring at the photo. The initial, paralyzing shock gave way to a cold, clinical focus. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I became a detective in the ruins of my own life. My first move was one of pure, strategic deception. I replied to Isabel. "Oh my goodness, Isabel, thank you so much," I typed, my fingers steady despite the tremor in my soul. "You've completely made our anniversary. He's been so secretive, I had no idea. Could you possibly send any others you took? I'd be forever grateful." I needed more ammunition. Isabel, God bless her, replied with 2 more photos, one of them feeding each other macarons at La Jurée, another, slightly blurry, of them kissing on the Pont des Arts. Each image was a fresh nail in the coffin of my marriage. I then began the excavation. I logged into our phone carrier's website. The records were a damning timeline. Dozens of short, frequent calls to a number I didn't recognize, always during my window of vulnerability, when I was at my part-time job at the gallery, or at a doctor's appointment, or grocery shopping. I called the number from a blocked line at a payphone outside the library. It rang twice. "Hello?" A woman's voice chirped, bright and unmistakably familiar. It was Clara. My blood didn't just run cold, it turned to glacial ice. Next, our shared bank account. Leo had been withdrawing $200, $300 at a time for weeks, all listed as client dinners or business expenses. but it was the credit card statements that laid out their Parisian fantasy in stark financial detail. A charge for $1,200 from Hôtel Les Belle Époque in the 7th arrondissement dated for the week of his Chicago trip. An $85 charge from Angelina, the famous tea salon known for its hot chocolate. 2 tickets to the Musée d'Orsay, purchased online. A receipt for a couple's massage at a luxury spa, emailed to him the day before he left. The cruelty was in the specificity. It was a targeted, personalized desecration. The week before he left, I'd had my final devastating appointment at the fertility clinic. The doctor had sat us down and used phrases that felt like physical blows. Diminished ovarian reserve, significantly reduced chances. We need to discuss other options like donor eggs. I had come home and fallen apart on the living room floor. Leo had held me, stroked my hair, his shirt growing damp with my tears. "Don't worry, my love," he'd whispered into my hair. "We'll get through this. We always do. We're a team." That same night, according to our Wi-Fi router history, which I now checked with the obsession of a forensic investigator, he had spent an hour and 17 minutes on a website called the Top 10 Most Romantic Rooftop Bars in Paris. The day he left for his trip, his duffel bag packed and waiting by the door, he'd been practically vibrating with a suppressed energy I'd mistaken for nervous excitement. "Wish me luck, Mia," he'd said, pulling me into a brief, hollow hug. This account could change everything for us. He'd kissed me, a quick, dry peck on the lips, and as he pulled away, a scent hit my nostrils. It was new. A sophisticated, spicy cologne, nothing like the clean, citrusy one he usually wore. I'd meant to ask him about it. Now I knew. It was a scent for his other life, a scent Clara had probably chosen for him. I finally opened the shared Instagram account, Mia and Leo Adventures, a page I'd always found slightly cringy and never engaged with. There it was, the winery photo of me, posted a week ago with the caption about the surprise. Our friends had flooded the comments. "So jealous! Leo, you're the best husband!" And then the comment that made me physically run to the bathroom and vomit. It was from Ben. "You too deserve this. Have an amazing time, Leo. Give me a hug from us." The sheer, unwitting tragedy of his words was a poison. The lies weren't just lies, they were a fully realized second life, a parasitic entity feeding on our joint account, our shared history, our mutual friends. He wasn't just cheating, he was methodically erasing me and inserting Clara into my role in the city we had always earmarked for our 15th anniversary. He had taken our most cherished shared dream and turned it into their sordid secret. The breaking point wasn't a single dramatic scream. It was a quiet, absolute shattering, like a sheet of glass succumbing to a flaw deep within its structure. Leo returned from Chicago on a Sunday evening. He burst through the door, tanned, and looking infuriatingly relaxed, dropping his luggage with an exaggerated sigh. God, it's good to be home. That was an absolute marathon. My brain is fried. He moved to hug me, his arms opening in a practiced gesture of homecoming. I took a deliberate step back, my own arms crossed over my chest, a human fortress. "How is the pitch?" I asked, my voice a marvel of flat calm. "Nailed it," he said, a fraction of a second too quickly. He wouldn't meet my eyes, instead busying himself with taking off his jacket. "I think they loved the presentation. The energy in the room was great. We'll know for sure by Wednesday." He was already laying the groundwork for the next lie, the "unfortunately we didn't get it" follow-up. "You look well rested for someone who just endured a business marathon," I commented, my tone light, almost conversational. He chuckled, a tight, nervous sound. "Yeah, well, the hotel had a fantastic gym, and the food was actually decent for once, not like the usual rubber chicken." I didn't respond. I simply walked to the kitchen table where my tablet lay. My hands were perfectly steady. My heart wasn't racing. It felt like a solid, frozen block of ice in my chest. I picked it up, my thumb finding the power button. A friend actually sent me some photos while you were away. A woman named Isabel. She thought we'd like them. I opened the gallery app where I had saved Isabel's photos and turned the screen to face him. It was the balcony shot, displayed in all its high-definition betrayal. The transformation was instantaneous and horrifying. The color drained from his face, leaving a sickly grayish pallor. The charming, confident facade of the man I'd married crumbled into dust. His mouth fell open, but no sound emerged. He looked from the damning image to my impassive face, his eyes wide with the pure, undiluted panic of a man who has just realized the trap is sprung. "Mia, I can explain," he finally choked out. Those 3 words, the cheater's holy trinity. A wave of cold, clean fury washed over me, so potent it felt like clarity itself. It extinguished the last flickering ember of my love for him, leaving only ashes. "Explain what, Leo?" I said, my voice still eerily calm, till I could feel a tremor starting deep in my core. "Explain how your business trip to Chicago had a scenic detour to the 7th arrondissement. Explain how your best man's wife, my friend, became your travel companion. Or perhaps you could explain the most creative part, how you used a photo of me, of us, to craft a cover story for your affair. How you used our dream as a prop for your little play." He stumbled forward, his hands reaching for me in a desperate, placating gesture. "It's not what you think. It just happened. We were both feeling lonely and stressed, and it was a mistake, a terrible, stupid mistake." "A mistake," I whispered, the calm finally cracking, allowing a sliver of razor-sharp emotion through, "is forgetting to buy milk. This is a masterpiece of betrayal. You didn't just break your vows, you broke our story, you broke Ben, you made a fool of me with my own friend in front of all our friends." I took a step towards him, my eyes locking with his. "Get out." "Mia, please, we can fix this." "Get out of my house," I repeated, each word a shard of ice. "Now." He stood there, paralyzed, a stranger silhouetted in the doorway of the home we had painted and loved and dreamed in. And in that suspended moment of silence, I didn't just realize I had to act. I knew, with every fiber of my being, that I would. This would not be the story of Mia, the blind-sided, weeping victim. This would be the story of Mia, the quiet, patient architect of consequences. Revenge, I decided, was not a dish best served cold. It was a dish best served at the perfect ambient temperature, with meticulous, undeniable proof as the main course, and the silent, crushing weight of consequence for dessert. I didn't want a dramatic scene. I wanted a reckoning. My first call on Monday morning was to a forensic accountant named Arthur. He was a small, quiet man with the weary eyes of someone who has seen the underbelly of every seemingly perfect marriage. I gave him the bank statements, the credit card bills, the hotel receipt. Within 48 hours, he had traced over $18,000 of our joint money directly to the affair. First-class train tickets to a planning session in New York, the Paris hotel, the Michelin-starred dinners, even a charge for lingerie from a boutique in Le Marais. I listened to his dry, factual report, each dollar amount a brick I would use to build my case. Next, I went to see Sarah Jenkins, a divorce lawyer whose name was synonymous with strategic evisceration. Her office was minimalist and intimidating. I laid out my evidence on her glass desk, the photos, the financial report, the phone records. She didn't flinch. She simply steepled her fingers and said, "Oh, he's a gem. The marital waste is spectacular. And the digital deception? The court will not be amused. We're going to have a lot of fun with this." That afternoon, I opened a new bank account in my name only, and following Sarah's advice, moved exactly 50% of our remaining liquid savings into it. It wasn't about the money. It was about establishing a new reality, one where I was in control. Leo, predictably, was bombarding me with pleas, texts, emails, voicemails full of rehearsed remorse. I'll do anything, Mia. I'll go to counseling. I'll end it with Clara. It meant nothing. I waited 3 days before I replied. I made my voice sound small, wounded, uncertain. I met him for coffee at a neutral location. I don't know, Leo, I said, twisting a napkin in my hands, letting my eyes well up on command. I just don't know how I could ever believe you're where you say you are. How could I ever not wonder? He fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Anything, Mia, he said. Just tell me what to do. I need transparency. Complete transparency. I want you to install this family tracking app on your phone so I can see where you are. It's the only way I can even start to think about rebuilding trust. He agreed instantly, desperately. He was so eager to prove his newfound fidelity that he didn't stop to think that fidelity now was irrelevant. The app, of course, gave me a perfect real-time log of his movements. A week later, the little digital pin representing Leo settled on a cheap hourly rate motel called the Starlight Inn on the industrial outskirts of town. I didn't need a photo to know Clara was there with him. I simply took a screenshot of the map, the time and date stamp a perfect digital testament to their continued deceit. I felt no jealousy, only a cold, satisfying click, like another piece of the puzzle sliding into place. The final, most delicate piece was Ben. He deserved the truth, but he deserved it delivered with care, not in a hysterical, tear-filled phone call. I needed him as an ally, not a loose cannon. I called him on a Saturday. Ben, hi, it's Mia. I need a huge favor. I'm trying to rearrange the living room and there's this massive bookshelf I can't move on my own. Rio's at the office. Any chance you could spare an hour? His voice was warm, oblivious. Of course, Mia, be there in 20. When he arrived, I had 2 mugs of coffee waiting. We made small talk about a project he was working on. Then, when he'd taken a sip, I sat down opposite him, my own hands steady around my mug. Ben, I began, my voice soft but firm. I asked you here under false pretenses. I'm sorry. What I'm about to show you is going to shatter you. It shattered me. But you are one of the best men I know, and you deserve the unvarnished truth about your wife and my husband. I then laid it all out on the coffee table between us, like exhibits in a trial. The Paris balcony photo, the phone records, Clara's number highlighted in yellow, the forensic accountant's summary, the $18,000 figure circled in red, the screenshot of Leo's phone at the Starlight Inn. I watched the journey of emotions on his face. Initial confusion, then dawning comprehension, then a profound gut-punch sadness that seemed to physically shrink him. He didn't cry, he just stared, his strong carpenter's hands lying limp on his knees. I knew she was distant. He finally said, his voice rough, as if full of gravel. I thought it was the stress of her design business not taking off. I've been working weekends, taking on extra jobs. I was trying to take the financial pressure off her. The tragic irony of his statement was a knife that twisted in both our hearts. I'm serving Leo with divorce papers next Friday, I told him quietly. My lawyer has all of this. I wanted you to see it first from me. And I have a proposition for you. We chose a Sunday for the final act. It was the 1-year anniversary of a joint vacation the 4 of us had taken to a lake house, a weekend of bonfires, laughter, and a sense of unshakable friendship. A happy memory they had now irrevocably poisoned. Leo, believing he was still in the winning her back phase of his narrative, came over bearing a ridiculously large bouquet of stargazer lilies. For our fresh start, he said, beaming his most charming, empty smile. He was already rewriting history in his head, turning his affair into a temporary stumble. "I'm glad you're here," I said, my voice sweet, almost girlish. "I actually invited Ben and Clara over too. I thought if we could all sit down together, as the friends we've been for so long, we could clear the air. I need that to even think about moving forward." His smile vanished, replaced by a mask of pure alarm. "Mia, what are you doing? That's a terrible idea." Before he could protest further, the doorbell rang. I let them in. Ben's face was a stoic mask, his jaw set. Clara looked nervous, her eyes darting around the room, unable to settle on any one thing. "Hey, guys," she said, her voice too bright. "What's this about, Mia?" The sparkler was fizzling, her energy dimmed to a nervous flicker. "It's about closure," I said pleasantly, gesturing to the sofa. "Please sit." We arranged ourselves in the living room, a perfect, horrifying tableau of broken friendship. Leo and Clara on one sofa, a united front of anxiety. Ben and I opposite them. I had my tablet on my lap. "Leo has been telling me about the immense stress he's been under with the startup and how that stress led to some significant lapses in judgment. He mentioned his trip to Chicago was particularly grueling." Leo was staring at me, his eyes wide with a silent, desperate warning. Clara had gone pale, her hands clenched in her lap. "But it's funny," I continued, a slight smile playing on my lips. "A lovely woman named Isabel sent me these photos from his trip. They tell a slightly different story." I turned the tablet around. I had created a silent, auto-advancing slideshow set to no music, just the relentless click of each new image. It started with the balcony shot, then zoomed in on their linked hands, on her finger resting on his wedding band. The next slide was the receipt from Hotel La Belle Époque. The next, the tickets to the Musée d'Orsay. Then, the screenshot of his phone at the Starlight Inn, the motel's garish sign visible in the map street view. The final slide was the forensic accountant's total, $18,427.19. Marital funds diverted. The room was so silent, I could hear the rustle of Clara's dress as she shifted. I could hear the ragged intake of Leo's breath. Then I turned my gaze to Clara. My voice was soft, but it cut through the silence like a scalpel. "The thing I keep getting stuck on, Clara, is the Instagram post. Why use my photo? Why use my name? Was it not enough to steal my husband? Did you have to steal my identity too? Did you two get a laugh out of that? Crafting your little fantasy while using my face as the shield?" The dam broke. She burst into messy, gulping tears. "It was his idea," she blurted out, pointing a trembling finger at Leo without looking at him. "He said it was the perfect cover, that no one would ever suspect if he was posting about you. I'm so sorry, Mia. It was a mistake." Leo shot to his feet, his face contorted with a rage I'd never seen before. The charming mask was gone, replaced by the snarling, cornered animal beneath. "You lying bitch. You set this whole thing up. You're trying to turn everyone against me. You're crazy." It was then that Ben spoke. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words were low, filled with a quiet tectonic thunder that shook the very foundations of the room. "Sit down, Leo." Leo froze, his rage momentarily stunned into submission by the authority in his best friend's voice. Then stood up slowly. He didn't even glance at his sobbing wife. His eyes were locked on Leo, and in them was a lifetime of shared history being incinerated. "We've been friends for 25 years. I was the best man at your wedding. I stood up there and gave a speech about loyalty. I trusted you with my life, with my wife. He shook his head, a world of disappointment and disgust in the simple gesture. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, Clara. And Leo? He finally looked at the man he'd called a brother. I hope that Parisian champagne was worth it. I hope the view from the balcony was everything you dreamed, because it just cost you your wife, your best friend, and every single cent of the money you stole to pay for it.
With that, Ben turned and walked out of the living room, out of the house, and out of their lives. The sound of the front door closing was a soft, final click, more powerful than any slam could ever be. Clara scrambled up from the sofa, a choked sob escaping her, and fled after him, her heels a frantic staccato on the hardwood floor. Leo stood alone in the center of the room, his shoulders slumped. The flowers he'd brought lay forgotten on the floor. He turned to me, his face a mask of rage, defeat, and utter bewilderment. "You ruined me," he whispered. "No, Leo," I said, standing up and walking calmly to the front door, holding it open for him. The afternoon sun streamed into the hallway, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. "You were the architect. You drew the blueprints. You laid every brick of this. I was just the general contractor who finally brought in the inspectors. Now get out of my house. My lawyer will be in touch." The divorce was finalized 8 months later, with Sarah Jenkins wielding the evidence of egregious marital waste. Leah was forced to concede to a settlement that gave me 70% of our assets, including the house, and he was ordered to reimburse half of the $18,000 he'd spent on the affair. The scandal didn't just ripple, it was a tsunami through our social circle. Mutual friends, horrified by the duplicity, chose sides, and Leo and Clara found themselves on a very lonely island. The bad press, which I did nothing to fuel, but nothing to stop, cost Apex Ford, the Anderson account, and 2 other major clients. Last I heard, they are still together, Leo and Clara, living in a small beige apartment on the wrong side of town, bound together not by passion, but by a shared secret that curdled into a public scandal. As for me, I sold the bungalow. The ghosts were too loud, the memories and the paint colors too painful. I used the money to buy a bright, airy condo downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and a dedicated room for a studio. The sable brushes Leo gave me, I used them every day. The art I neglected for years is now flourishing. Bold, abstract pieces full of color and emotion I never knew I had inside me. I'm still on my fertility journey, but the pressure is gone. It's my path now, my choice. I'm exploring options, from single motherhood by choice to adoption, on my own terms, in my own time. Ben and I have an unexpected, profound friendship, forged in the absolute fire of a shared betrayal. We have dinner once a month. We talk about his new carpentry projects, about my art, about books, about life. We never, ever talk about the 2 people who brought us together. There's no need. The understanding is there, a quiet solidarity. People ask me if I'm bitter. They expect me to be, but I'm not. The revenge was never about hatred. It was about reclamation. I reclaimed my truth, my financial security, my future, and my voice. I learned that the most satisfying revenge is not a dramatic, emotional explosion, but a quiet, dignified, and systematic rebuilding. It's living a life so full, so authentic, and so content that the betrayal becomes a chapter in your history, not the title of your story. The moral of this file isn't that love is a lie or that people are inherently treacherous. It's that your integrity is your greatest asset. Your clarity is your strongest weapon. When someone tries to shatter your world, you don't have to kneel in the rubble picking up the pieces they broke. You can sweep the debris aside and design a new structure, one with a stronger foundation and a much better view. And sometimes, the most powerful force in the world is not a scream of rage, but a calm, collected, and perfectly timed collection of evidence presented with the quiet confidence of someone who knows without a doubt that they held the truth all along.